History books taught us dates, battles, and victories. But they rarely showed the faces, the exhaustion, the hunger, the silence after the gunfire stopped. These photographs were not meant to inspire pride. They were meant to be forgotten. Every image you are about to see captures a moment someone lived through, and many did not survive. Soldier sleeping in trenches, Thiepval, France. This soldier sleeps while his comrades stand watch, knowing artillery could strike at any moment. In the trenches, rest was a fragile privilege. Exhaustion often overcame fear, even as danger remained only yards away. Soldier with a cane and telescope, 1916. The smile hides fatigue. Many soldiers posed calmly for cameras despite the constant threat surrounding them. These moments were brief attempts at normalcy in a world reshaped by violence and uncertainty. Soldier searching for lice, 1917. Lice were a constant enemy in the trenches. Soldiers spent hours searching their clothes, not for comfort, but for survival. Disease spread faster than bullets, and hygiene was nearly impossible under these conditions. New Zealand engineers in a shell hole, 1917. New Zealand engineers take shelter in a shell hole, surrounded by devastation. Engineering units worked under fire, repairing trenches and roads, tasks as dangerous as frontline combat, yet rarely remembered. British Army, Western Front. This image captures the scale of the Western Front. Endless lines of men moved through a scarred landscape, knowing many would never return. The war demanded bodies faster than nations could replace them. Breastwork Trench, Armentières, 1916. Trenches like this became temporary homes for years. Mud, water, and decay were constant companions. Soldiers lived inches from death, adapting to conditions no human was meant to endure. Building Battalion Headquarters, Courcelles. Even amid destruction, armies built command centers close to the front. These structures coordinated attacks that could cost thousands of lives, often planned just meters away from where soldiers slept. Mumsilo Gavrik reporting to officers, 1916. Mumsilo Gavrik was one of the youngest soldiers of the war. Orphaned by violence, he became a symbol of how war spared no one, not even children. German soldiers writing letters, 1914. Writing home was both comfort and torment. Soldiers often softened the truth, hiding fear and suffering. Many of these letters became final goodbyes, arriving long after the writers were gone. Cleaning the rifle before shaving. Before shaving, this soldier cleans his rifle, priorities shaped by war. Weapons came before personal care. Survival depended on discipline, even in moments meant for rest. Belgian machine gunners with early gas masks. Early gas masks were crude and unreliable. Chemical warfare introduced invisible terror, forcing soldiers to trust equipment that often failed them in the chaos of battle. Soldiers bathing in shell craters. Shell craters filled with rainwater became makeshift baths. Cleanliness was rare, but moments like this offered brief relief from filth and fear, luxuries in trench warfare. Italian soldiers killed in the trench. Bodies lie where they fell. Trench warfare allowed little room for retreat. Death often came suddenly, leaving comrades to step over the fallen to continue fighting. Gas mask drills. Soldiers trained repeatedly for gas attacks, knowing hesitation meant death. The masks distorted vision and breathing, turning survival into a physical struggle even after escape. British emplacement after gas attack. Gas attacks left positions abandoned and silent. Survivors returned to scenes of lingering death, unsure if the air itself was still safe to breathe. Gas alarm bell, 1916. A simple bell warned of invisible danger. Its sound triggered panic and urgency, giving soldiers seconds to react before poison filled the trenches. German casualties at the Somme. The Somme consumed lives on an unimaginable scale. Entire units vanished within hours. This battlefield became a symbol of industrialized slaughter. German Spring Offensive, 1918. The final German offensive pushed exhausted armies to their limits. It was a desperate gamble that cost enormous lives and hastened the war's end. Water cart stuck in mud, Pilcum Ridge. Mud swallowed men, animals, and machines alike. Logistics collapsed as nature itself resisted war, turning simple tasks into deadly ordeals. Rat hunter rewarded. Rats thrived among corpses and food scraps. Soldiers hunted them for sanity as much as hygiene. Even small victories mattered in trench life. Snow in reserve trenches. Winter brought freezing misery. Snow-filled trenches, stiffening uniforms and numbing bodies. Cold claimed lives just as surely as enemy fire. Stretcher bearers in mud. Carrying wounded through mud was exhausting and deadly. Medics risked their lives repeatedly, knowing many they saved would still not survive. Periscope observation, Nieuport. Peering over the trench could mean instant death. Periscopes offered a fragile layer of safety while observing an enemy only yards away. Indian Army Machine Gun Crew. Colonial troops fought far from home for empire's equality. Their sacrifice was immense, yet long overlooked in history. Sir James Wilcox with Indian officers. Indian officers navigated loyalty and discrimination. Their leadership proved vital, even as recognition remained limited after the war. Indian officers meeting the command. These meetings masked deep inequalities. Despite bravery and skill, colonial soldiers returned to systems that refused them full rights. Chinese Labor Corps, 1917. Thousands of Chinese laborers worked behind the lines, loading supplies and repairing damage. They faced danger without weapons or recognition. Women using helmets as baskets. Resourcefulness defined the war. Women repurposed military equipment for daily survival, blurring the line between civilian and battlefield life. Indian troops on the Western Front. Indian soldiers endured harsh climates and racism. Many never returned home, buried in foreign soil for a cause not their own. Bulgarian soldiers at Ivaz Baba Fort. The Balkan front was brutal and complex. This image reflects shifting alliances and a forgotten violence beyond the Western Front. Arab Camel Corps, 1916. Arab forces supported Allied campaigns in harsh desert conditions. Their contributions reshaped Middle Eastern history after the war. Royal Irish Rifles resting, Somme. Moments of rest were rare and brief. Soldiers slept where they could, preparing mentally for the horrors ahead. Anzac Hospital patients. Wounded soldiers faced long recoveries. Many carried physical and psychological scars that lasted long after the war ended. First aid on the battlefield. Immediate care saved lives, but supplies were limited. Comrades often became medics in moments of desperation. Belgian refugees, 1914. These Belgian families fled their homes with only what they could carry. Entire communities vanished overnight as the German invasion swept through neutral Belgium. For millions of civilians, the war began not with gunfire, but with exile, hunger, and the loss of everything familiar. Destruction of Hebuterne, France. Hebuterne was once a quiet farming village. After years of shelling, nothing remained but shattered stone and silence. Thousands of towns across Europe shared this fate, erased so completely that survivors returned to places that no longer felt like home. Nurse tableau, First World War. Nurses worked endlessly among blood, infection, and grief. Many were volunteers with minimal training, yet they faced unimaginable trauma daily. Their calm expressions hid exhaustion and sorrow as they became witnesses to suffering on an industrial scale. Child refugees of World War I. Children fled alongside their parents, confused and terrified. Many lost siblings, homes, and childhoods in a single moment. These young refugees would carry the memory of war long before they understood what war truly was. Breadlines in Germany. As the war dragged on, hunger spread far beyond the battlefield. Allied blockades cut off food supplies, forcing civilians to wait hours for bread that barely sustained them. Malnutrition weakened entire generations long after the fighting ended. American Field Hospital inside church ruins. A shattered church becomes a hospital. Sacred spaces were transformed into shelters for the wounded, where prayers were replaced by cries of pain. War repurposed even humanity's most holy places into tools of survival. Australian soldiers fed before embarkation, 1916. Local women serve food to Australian soldiers before they leave for the front. Many of these men would never return. These quiet gestures of care became final memories of kindness before the violence ahead. Female carpenters, Calais, 1918. With men at the front, women stepped into physically demanding roles. These carpenters built huts and infrastructure critical to the war effort. Their labor challenged old assumptions, and permanently changed the workforce after the war ended. Schoolboys drawing plants, England. Inside classrooms, teachers tried to preserve normal life. Boys focused on simple drawings while war raged beyond the walls. Education became a fragile shield against fear, offering structure in a world unraveling outside. Schoolboys making micrometers, 1917. Even children were drawn into wartime production. These boys manufactured precision tools for industry, learning responsibility far too young. War reshaped childhood, turning play into preparation for labor and service. British ambulance train ward. Ambulance trains carried the wounded away from the front, but safety was never guaranteed. Nurses treated injuries while the train rattled through hostile territory. For many soldiers, this was the final journey between battle and survival. Women enlisted in the U.S. Navy. For the first time, American women officially enlisted in the military. They filled clerical, communications, and technical roles, proving their capability and setting precedents that reshaped military service for generations. Women munitions workers, Woolwich Arsenal. These women handled explosives daily, risking injury or death. Toxic chemicals stained their skin and damaged their health. Their dangerous labor fueled the front lines while remaining largely invisible in post-war memory. Gas mask factory, Geneva. Inside this factory, women assembled protection against chemical warfare. Each mask represented survival against an unseen enemy. Their work saved countless lives, even as gas attacks continued to haunt the war's legacy. Female machinist at the shipyard. Heavy industry was no longer exclusively male. Women mastered complex machinery, keeping shipyards running during wartime shortages. Their presence permanently altered industrial labor and social expectations. Packing fuse heads, Coventry Ordnance Works. Precision mattered. A single mistake could kill soldiers miles away. These women worked under immense pressure, knowing their hands shaped the outcomes of battles they would never witness. Regimental Aid Post. Aid posts stood dangerously close to the fighting. Medics treated shattered bodies with limited supplies, forced to choose who might live. Survival often depended on minutes, and luck. French nurse treating wounded soldiers. This nurse represents countless women who bore emotional scars alongside physical exhaustion. Healing the wounded meant witnessing death daily, yet compassion never stopped flowing from those tasked with care. Facial injury mask casting. Severe facial wounds were among the war's most haunting injuries. Masks restored dignity, not identity. These soldiers returned home altered forever, living reminders of modern warfare's brutality. Nurses wearing gas masks. Even medical workers were not spared from chemical attacks. Wearing gas masks while treating patients, nurses operated in constant danger, proof that war respected no role, no uniform. Red Cross staff near front lines. The Red Cross worked tirelessly to relieve suffering, often under fire. Their neutrality offered hope amid destruction, though the scale of casualties frequently overwhelmed even their greatest efforts. Amputee American soldiers, Walter Reed. Survival came at a cost. These men returned home missing limbs, futures forever altered. Rehabilitation was long, painful, and incomplete. Victory offered little comfort to broken bodies. Dead horses on abandoned battlefields. Horses powered transport and artillery, yet suffered immensely. Their bodies littered the landscape, silent witnesses to a war that consumed animals as ruthlessly as men. Duckboard track, Ypres salient. Wooden tracks cut through mud and death. Soldiers moved carefully, knowing one misstep could mean drowning in shell holes or drawing enemy fire. Wax tending war graves. Women of the WAAC cared for the fallen, ensuring the dead were not forgotten. Tending graves became an act of remembrance, grief, and quiet respect. Ruined church, Ypres, or Bapaume. Years after the fighting, ruins still stood. Churches, homes, and cities lay broken, monuments to a war that reshaped Europe and proved that peace does not erase destruction. If these images made you pause, then their stories still matter. Subscribe to Antique Visions for more rare photographs that reveal the human cost of war. And leave a comment to honor those whose voices were never heard.